Hello, good evening, and welcome to our lesson on the present tense. So, after talking about the past tense a few weeks ago, we're going to talk about the present tense this time. And there are a lot of misunderstandings surrounding this tense, so I felt the need to dedicate a special lesson for it. And this is going to be this is going to be specially useful for our activity tomorrow. So we're going to do a group activity, which I'm going to be giving more details on later on. But we're doing the flipped classroom setup right now. You get to watch a video, and by the time you come to the class tomorrow, you would have been ready to do the activity. So that's the whole idea behind this video. Alright, with those things being said, let's get started. Today we're going to cover three things. So we're going to do a quick review of the past tense. We're going to be talking about the different forms of present tense and their meanings. And we're going to be talking about how to formulate negative yes-no key questions with present tense. Let's get started. I want you to meet this special man. He is Dr. Abraham Joseph. So we're going to get to know him a little bit better. We're going to be using his story to learn about the present tense. Let me read it first. Okay, let me get this out of the way. Dr. Abraham Joseph is the Director of Leadership Programs, of course in IGSL. He joined IGSL as full-time faculty in June 2018. Before coming to IGSL, Dr. Joseph was a professor at the Asian Christian Academy, Evangelical Theological Seminary near Bangalore, India, from 1999 to 2018. He taught in the Theological Studies Department and at the same time in Biblical Studies and Pastoral Theology departments. For 4 years, he was serving as the Director of Administrative Affairs, and in 2012, while he was directing the PhD Studies Department, he was also pastoring a church in Bangalore. This semester, he is teaching a theology subject. He does not have online classes, but almost every day he checks papers and prepares materials for his classes. Every Thursday, he also has a meeting with the faculty of IGSL, and on Tuesdays, he meets with the IGSL leadership team. But Kuya Abraham knows how to balance his time well. In his free time, he reads books and spends time with his family. These days, he's spending a lot of time with his son. His daughter is studying in a university in the US, while his son is studying in a high school near Manila. He also takes care of their 2 dogs. So with these, even though he is sad and that he cannot go to IGSL, he's glad that he can spend more time with his family. So are his son and wife. Okay, so we will be using this story of Kuya Abraham to talk about past tense and present tense. Let's start with... Okay, let me get this out of the way. Let's start with past tense. Let's do a short review. Okay, let's identify the past tense. So we have joined, was, taught, was serving, was directing, and was pastoring. Okay, so we've got the 3 basic forms of past tense right here. Do you remember what are their usage? What do we use them for? And their meanings and their forms. So 2 or 3 weeks ago we talked about them, right? So let's do a short review. So we've got was and where, and we use was and where to talk about what? Yeah, so we have nouns, adjectives, and prepositional phrases that follow be verbs was and where. And that applies for every be verb in English. So if you want to review that, go back to our previous lesson on past tense. So in this case, Dr. Joseph was a professor. What was he? A professor. So we're using a noun. We also have joined, of course, right here. He joined IGSL as full-time faculty in 2018. When did he join IGSL as full-time faculty? That's right, in June 2018. Okay, we call this pattern, along with the other ones, taught. Oh yeah, that's the only, those are the only examples of simple past tense. Okay? Simple past tense is different from, of course, it's in the past, but it's usually a quick action, right? Remember? And of course, we have the third pattern, was serving, right here. So we have 3 examples in this paragraph: was serving, was directing, and was pastoring. Now we use these to talk about longer actions. Remember that? So in this case, we're talking about a period of 4 years. So it's best to use was serving or past progressive or past continuous in this case. Although I can also say he served. That will also be fine. But if I want to emphasize that it's over a period of time, it happened over a period of time, it's a long action, then I can use past progressive or past continuous, whatever you prefer. And in this pattern, while he was directing, he was also pastoring. So 2 things happening at the same time. Do you remember that graph in the, if I may say, Cartesian plane? That's in mathematics, I know. But you remember that graph, 2 actions happening at the same time? So we use, since they're long actions, we use past progressive tense. Okay, so that's a quick review of the past tense forms that we have in English. Basic past tense forms we have in English. Now we're ready to move on to the present tense. So different forms of present tense. Let's try to identify the present tense verbs in this story. We have is, and we've got is teaching, does not have, checks, prepares, has, meets, knows. Okay, I gotta get my face out of the way just for a minute. We've got reads, spends, is spending, is studying, takes care. Oh, we skipped that. Sorry about that. Is, and are. That's it. So these are our present tense verbs. Now, they are very similar if you look at the pattern, right? If you look at the form, they're very similar with past tense. But of course, the only difference is it's in the present, as the name suggests. Now, let's look at the different forms of present tense. We're going to have to unpack this because I would say that this is one of the most misunderstood tenses in English. Okay. The first one is just like was, where, we also have the present form of be verbs, and that is am, is, are. Let's look at them. Where are they in this story? There should be one more. Okay. So again, what are the usage of present tense, or sorry, am, is, are, or the be verbs in present tense? So we use it for nouns, just like this. Dr. Abraham Joseph is what? Or who? The director of leadership programs. So there's the answer there. So it's a noun. You can also look at the other examples. She's the head of the department. They are what? What are they? Or who are they? They are students of IGSL. But of course, we don't just use them for nouns, we also use them for adjectives or descriptions. The teachers are happy. Here we have these examples at the bottom. So with these, even though he's sad, so what's he like? How is this sentence describing Kuya Abraham? Yes, he is sad. Why? Because he can't go to IGSL. But he is also, at the same time, he is glad. So another adjective right here, that he can spend more time with his family. So are his son and wife. So when we see this pattern, so are, that means it's referencing the previous sentence, and it's talking about glad, right? That's the most, that's the nearest reference you have in this context. So the meaning of this sentence is, his son and wife are also glad. Yeah, so is like a shortcut. All right. So other examples we have, of course, for I, we have a special be verb, and that is am. Am surprised. I am surprised. He is in the hospital. We also use prepositional phrases. Prepositional phrases are phrases that start with a preposition. It's that simple. The kids are outside the campus. Okay, so you can see that the usage of am, is, are is very much similar to was and where. The only difference is, yes, you figured it out. This is in present. Okay, whereas was and where are in the past. Okay, so let's move on to the second form of present tense that we can see from this example. Okay, so we have here checks, prepares, has, meets. Yeah, you can speak along with me. Knows, reads, spends, takes care. Oops. Okay, that was the last one. Okay, I don't want to have to edit this out. So, pardon my mistake. Okay, we have to stop at takes care. There you go. There you go. I forgot, not we. I forgot to highlight this one. This is also the same in the same tense with the rest of the words that are highlighted. So we call this simple present. Simple present. Now, when do we use simple present? Okay, without looking at these ones first, of course you were looking at it earlier already. Let's try to figure out, huh? He does not have online classes, but almost every day he checks papers and prepares materials for his classes. Okay, now I want you to focus on this. Almost every day he checks papers and prepares materials for his classes. So if we're talking about repeated actions or habits, then we use simple present tense. So we use simple present tense to talk about habits or repeated actions. Just like this. Every Thursday, he also has a meeting with the faculty of IGSL. Now, this is every Thursday, right? It's a weekly thing. So it doesn't matter how often it is. The most important thing is that it is done repeatedly or more than once. Okay? So that's when we use simple present tense. And on Tuesdays, again, on Tuesdays, not just this coming Tuesday, but every Tuesday, that's the meaning of on Tuesdays, he meets with the IGSL leadership team. Okay, so that's another repeated action right there. Now, what about this? But Kuya Abraham knows how to balance his time well. Now, is that talking about actions? Or should I say habits? No, not anymore. So we use simple present to also talk about states or opinions. Now, for more explanations on this and for more examples, I want you to check the PDF file that I sent you earlier via Slack. So when we use, for example, I know that God loves me. So we are expressing an opinion or a state of mind. So we also use simple present, not just to talk about habits, but also states. Okay, but this time, in the last paragraph, you can see in his free time, again, this is a repeated action, right? You're not just talking about a specific time in the past or in the future, but you assume that he has free time. We don't know how much free time he has, but we assume that he has free time every now and then. So in his free time, what does he do? He reads books and spends time with his family. Yeah, so these are the things he does when he has free time. Now, these days, he's spending a lot of time. Okay, yeah, this one you should skip. I forgot that. Let's move on to this. He also takes care of their 2 dogs. So what does he do? What else does he do? Yeah, he also takes care of their 2 dogs. So that's another thing that he does in his free time. So these are regular actions. How regular, it doesn't matter, but we use present tense to talk about these things. Now let's look at the examples on the side. Young me goes to class every day. So there's a clue there, every day. So this is a repeated action. Now, I wanted to talk about this. This is the one I was talking about when I said it's present tense is confusing for many people, for many English learners, because it's being used to talk about the future incorrectly. So sometimes people would say, where are you going? I go to my hometown. Or what are you doing? What are you doing tomorrow? I do my assignments. So they're using present tense to talk about the future. Or sometimes they would also use present tense to talk about now. Like, hey, what are you doing now? I eat. I eat my food. So you see why it's wrong, right? It's supposed to be used to talk about habits and not for ongoing actions. Okay, it should be for repeated actions. So get that right. Okay? Now, we have the second example. We study English every Tuesday and Thursday. So again, it's a repeated action. It's every Tuesday and Thursday. That's why we use present tense. Now, did you notice that we use S right here? Checks, prepares, meets, knows, spends, reads, takes. We use S when we use present tense. Why is that? It depends on the subject. If the subject is only one, or what we call in English singular, then you have to add S. You have to add S. But if our subject is plural or more than one, then we drop the S and we just use the normal or the base form of the verb, just like this. We study English every Tuesday and Thursday. Okay? I know it's quite tricky, right? It can be confusing. And as Kuya Brown would always say, that's the way it is. English is crazy. It's a crazy language. But if the other students were able to do it, you also can do it. Again, it's about forming habits. So now that you're aware of it, make it a habit to add S when you're talking about present tense, or when you're using simple present, when you're talking about repeated action, and you're using a singular verb. What about I and you? So I go to the market every day. Why didn't I use goes? Well, you and I are the only exceptions. Remember that. Okay, let's move on. Bianca lives in Florida. Now, this is no longer a habit. This is a state. You're stating a fact about her. She lives in Florida. They all like chocolate. So, again, this is a state, a preference. This is not about habits anymore, but we use present tense or simple present. We use simple present to talk about states. More on that later on, but start opening up your eyes, especially when you read Newsela articles. You're not going to find these in Hudson Taylor's biography, but you can find these in Newsela articles because they use present tense. Okay, let's go to the third one. So the third form of verb, why is it? Okay, that's right. Sorry, I got confused. Yeah, the third form of verb is plus ing. So we have several here. Is teaching, is spending, is studying, and also is studying. So what does this pattern mean? We use this pattern to talk about actions that are happening now. Actions that are happening now. Like, what am I doing right now? I am recording a video. That's what it is. So that's what I'm doing right now. But we have two kinds of now in English. We have right now, like as in now, immediate now. But we also have what I call a longer term now. What do I mean by that? Okay. Yeah, what are you doing now? I'm cleaning my shoes. But we also have this kind of now. What are your kids? Oh, see, I made a mistake. What are your kids doing during the lockdown? I missed doing. Sorry about that. Well, they are reading lots of books. Does that mean that they are reading books now? Like right now? No, it doesn't mean that. But you are talking about the longer term now. Okay? So remember that. Either way, for both of them, we use present progressive. Okay, there's so many names in English, I'm also getting confused. So we use present progressive. Now, in this example, this semester he is teaching a theology subject. Now, are we talking about right now or longer term now? Which one are we talking about? Yeah, that's right. Your clue here is this semester. So it should not necessarily be right now. Like probably now as I'm talking, he is taking his dinner. He's with his family having his dinner, right? He's probably not teaching at this time of the night. So he's probably doing something else. So this is for longer term now. All right? Now, let's look at the other one. Yeah, this example as well. These days, he is spending a lot of time with his son. Now, is he spending a lot of time with his son right now? We don't know for sure, right? But we do know, what we do know is that this sentence is not talking about the right now, it's talking about the longer term now. Because of these days. These days. That means recently. Okay? His daughter is studying in a university in the US while his son is studying in a high school near Manila. Okay, again, we asked the question, is this right now or is this longer term now? Yeah, this is also longer term now, right? Who knows? They might be studying right now, but that's not what this sentence is saying. It's just telling us that at this point of time, like for this, at this point of the year, they are studying in different places. Okay? It's like if somebody asks you right now, hey, what are you doing now? Are you still working? No, I already resigned. I am studying. So it doesn't mean that at that time you were studying, right? But what you're trying to say is at that time or during this time, like a longer period now, I am studying. I'm no longer working. Okay? You get the idea. You get the idea. I'm sure of that. I hope so. Okay, so there you go. Now, some question that you might have is this. What's the difference between... Okay, let's get this away. What's the difference between simple present and present progressive? Now, what do you think is the difference? Okay, to answer this, we're going to look at this sentence. Okay, let me just put my face away. Usually, he takes violin classes at this time But now he's sleeping in because they are on break. By the way, what do we mean by sleep in? So when you sleep in, that means you stay longer in bed than the usual. So if you wake up at 7 a.m., when you sleep in, that means you wake up at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. That's sleeping in. All right. So this sentence is using two tenses. The first one is takes. We have simple present, and the second one is sleeping, which is present progressive. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean? Let's use this again. Okay, so two actions. The first one takes classes, so it's a regular action, right? Usually at this time or on this day, on this day at this time, let's say at 9 a.m., every Friday, he takes violin classes, right? So it's a regular action. But does that mean that he is taking violin classes right now? No, in fact, he is sleeping. So right now, he is sleeping in. This is what's happening right now. So there is a difference between simple present and present progressive. So don't ever use simple present to talk about actions now. Okay, just because we use that word present in that name of the tense, like simple present, it doesn't mean that it's for now. Okay? It's for habits and states. Now, there are exceptions. There are exceptions when it comes to the usage of simple present tense. And when you're talking about things that are happening right now. I'm gonna talk more about that later on, but I'll just give you an example, okay? If you're talking about, for example, okay, do you agree with me right now in what I'm saying that we should not go out of our houses? So that's a question, right? Do you agree with me? So even though I'm talking about now, I'm not going to say, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. No, I'm not going to say that, right? So I'm going to say instead, yes, I agree with you. Yes, I agree with you. Well, first of all, it's for opinion. Remember, for states, we use present tense. But you might reason out that, oh, we're talking about now. Why are you not saying I'm agreeing? Well, because it's not a dynamic verb. When we say dynamic verbs, we'll talk more about this later. But when you say dynamic verbs, these are verbs that have actions, real actions, right? But when you say agree, there's no action there. There's no action there. Unlike walking, running, what are you doing now? I'm studying. There is some action there. Okay, so we don't use ing for stative verbs. We're going to talk more about that later on. Okay, so just to let you know that English has a lot of exceptions that can drive us crazy. But before we talk about the exceptions, let's try to master the foundation first, okay? Yeah, that's why we're talking about these things. All right, with those things being said, now we can breathe a little. You join me in breathing? Seriously, just stop right now and breathe. Inhale and exhale. One more. Inhale and exhale with your mouth. Okay, that was a much needed break for me as well. But I want to continue. I just want to be done with this so I can send you the video as soon as possible. Okay, we are now going to talk about the last portion of our lesson, which is NYNK. Now, how do we transform, how do we try to manipulate this specific sentence right here that's using a be verb, the first form that we have, to come up with negative sentence, yes, no question, and key question? Okay, let's try. So for negative, what do we say? Oh, I shouldn't have pressed that too early. For negative, it's simple. We just add a not after is. You already know that. So we would say Dr. Abraham Joseph is not the director of leadership programs. Okay? Now for speaking, we can say isn't. Isn't, right? Or aren't. Okay, let's go to yes no question. Okay, it's very similar to was and where. What's the yes no question? Say it out. Okay, I hope you got it right. Is Dr. Abraham Joseph the director of leadership programs? Now, don't forget that rise at the end of your question to signal that this is a yes no question. And the answer is, of course, yes, he is. Or no, he is not. Okay, let's go to the key question. Now, what key questions can you talk about? It's a very simple sentence, so there are not many things we can ask. What's the most obvious key question we can ask here? Okay, let's see if you got the right one. Who is the director of leadership programs? That could be one option, the most simple. And the answer is Dr. Abraham is the director of leadership programs. I highlighted the wrong one. I'm sorry about that. I should have highlighted Dr. Abraham Joseph because we're asking for who is the director. So the answer, short answer here for speaking would have been Dr. Abraham Joseph. Okay. Another question you can ask, which is a bit more complicated because it's unusual. Dr. Abraham Joseph is the director of what programs? And the short answer would be leadership programs. Now for writing, we want to make that longer. Dr. Abraham Joseph is the director of leadership programs. So when you answer a question like that, then you give a full sentence for some reason, then you can emphasize that by saying something like, by saying it in this way, Dr. Abraham Joseph is the director of leadership programs. See my emphasis? Yeah, you can do that. Okay, we are done with the first one. You can see it's very simple, right? It's just the same with was and where. Now let's talk about the second one. So we have here checks. Checks. Sorry, or simple present. Now, I want to use this because some of you are still confused. I wouldn't say some, but most of you are still confused on how to manipulate this kind of verb. So every Thursday, he also has a meeting with the faculty of IGSL. So yes, you might be wondering, has is also a form of simple present. Okay, now what is the negative? Okay, I hope you did not say every Thursday he also has not a meeting with the faculty of IGSL, because that is wrong, as I have told you a couple of times. So what should it be? Every Thursday he also does not have a meeting with the faculty of IGSL. Okay? So please get that right. Now, what would be the... Oh, sorry. I'm too quick in pressing the button. What would be the yes/no question? So instead of using did, now for present tense, we simple present, not just present tense, but for simple present, we use does or do. It depends. So in this case, our verb is he, right? And you can see that it's a singular verb. In this case, I have to use does. Does. Does he also have? And then you would be using the base form of the verb, just like with did. Okay? Does he also have a meeting with the faculty of IGSL every Thursday? And the answer is yes, he does. No, he does not. Easy, right? It's just like using did in past tense, but you have to change it to does. But everything else is the same. You also use a base form right here. Okay? So this is another habit that you should begin forming. Yeah, and that's what we're going to do later on or tomorrow. Another key question this time. How often does he have a meeting with the faculty of IGSL? So our answer here, we're trying to answer with this part of the sentence, every Thursday. So every Thursday, he has a meeting with the faculty of IGSL. Now, there's another way to put this question. Every when does he have a meeting with the faculty of IGSL? So they're almost the same. Yeah, very similar. But this one is more consistent with the grammatical pattern in the sentence. Every when, right? And then, yeah, it's the same thing. The auxiliary verb, or does in this case, comes first, and then the subject comes after it. Just like did, right? So every when does he have a meeting with the faculty of IGSL? And the answer is the same thing, every Thursday. Okay, some more key questions that we can ask. Now, this is a special question. Remember, I told you about whom, whose, and which are advanced WH questions you can ask. Now, today we're going to talk about this. With whom does he have a meeting every Thursday? So why is it like this? Okay, look at this, huh? So if you look at the pattern with the faculty of IGSL, this is what we call object of the preposition. So you can see it's not the subject, it's the object. With whom? With whom? So if you have this kind of pattern, if you're trying to ask and the answer is not the subject of the sentence and it's a person or persons, then you have to use whom. Otherwise, for subjects, we just ask we just ask who. If the answer is, in this case, if we want the answer to be he, then what question would we ask? Who also has a meeting with the faculty of IGSL? So in that case, it's very easy, right? But the moment you want to ask for the other part of the sentence and you want the answer to be from the other part of the sentence, then you have to use whom. Like in this case. And you try to follow the grammatical pattern in the sentence as closely as possible. Okay? Try to follow it as closely as possible. What I mean is, if you see a with, then you should also use a with. If you see another preposition, then you should also use another preposition. So this is one of the cases wherein NYNK, sorry, a bit lagging. NYNK is going to be useful. If you are trying to manipulate the inherent or the original grammatical structure in asking questions, then that's when NYNK becomes especially useful. Alright, now it's the same thing. So since we're not asking about the subject, we also have to use does. So the auxiliary verb does, just like did. With whom does he have, and then the base form, a meeting every Tuesday. Did you get that? I hope you did. If you have questions about that, you can ask. Okay, you can ask tomorrow. But try using that pattern. So of course the answer is the faculty of IGSL. With the faculty of IGSL, or the complete answer for writing, he has a meeting with the faculty of IGSL every Thursday. Now another one, you can also say, what does he have every Thursday? So you can see here that we used the same exact verb that is in the sentence. So have, has. It's just that we changed it because of the does. And the answer is he has a meeting. Another one, of course, the easiest. It will be the easiest, right? Who has a meeting with the faculty of IGSL every Thursday? This is what I was talking about. You can see here the change with the inclusion of does, but in this case you didn't need to use the does because you're asking about the subject of the sentence. And the answer, of course, is Dr. Joseph. Is that clear? Is that clear? We're almost done. We're on the third one now. Okay. This semester, he is teaching a theology subject. Again, so we are using present progressive. We're using present progressive, or in some books they say present continuous, so don't be confused. They're just the same. Is teaching. Now, it's the same thing with past progressive. The same thing in terms of the way you use it for N, negative, yes, no, and key questions. Okay? So let's give it a try. What would be the negative sentence for this? Okay, I hope you got that right. The negative sentence would be, he is not teaching a theology subject. Okay, simple, right? Just like the one in past progressive. Now, what would be the yes, no question? Okay, I'm going to wait for you. Okay. Did you get this? This semester, is he teaching a theology subject? And the answer is, no, he is not. Or, okay. Do not, so there's a caution here. It's like I'm surprised with my own presentation. I did not expect that. Yeah, there's a caution here. Do not put a not in a yes/no question. Like in this case, you cannot say this semester, is he not teaching a theology subject? Would have a different meaning compared to this yes/no question. Okay, so you cannot say this semester, is he not teaching a theology subject? When you ask that question, you're not really asking a question. You're almost making a statement. You're trying to say that he's teaching a theology subject. I think he is. Is he not? Yeah, that's what you're trying to say. You're making a statement already. So it's like you are confirming if what you think is right. Whereas in this case, if you ask, is he teaching a theology subject? You really don't know the answer. It can be yes or no. And you sincerely don't know the answer. Yeah, so that's why don't use a not in this question. In the yes or no question. So it's very simple, right? It's the same with if this was or last semester he was teaching a theology subject, it would become last semester was he teaching a theology subject? Yeah, so you manipulate it in the same way you manipulate a past progressive tense. Now, what are some key questions we can ask? What is he teaching this semester? Easy, right? Yeah, that was an easy question to formulate. He is teaching a theology subject this semester. Of course, the sentence is simple also. That's why it's easy. Now, what other question can you ask? Yeah, who is teaching a theology subject this semester? Dr. Joseph is teaching a theology subject. Okay, so that's it for our lesson today. So today we were able to cover a review of the past tense, the different forms of the present tense, and what are those? We have the be verbs, is, am, are. We have the simple present, and we have the past. Sorry, we have the present progressive. Okay. Yeah, it's not just you who's getting confused with all these terms. So, but the thing is, here's what I want to say at this point. It's not about mastering those names, it's about using them well. Okay, grammar is not going to be as beneficial, or studying grammar is not going to be as beneficial as it should be if you're not able to use it correctly. Okay, so the most important thing is not only that you're aware of the grammatical structures and their complicated names, the most important thing is that you are able to use them well and correctly. Okay? Alright, now that we've finished talking about present tense, we are talking about how you're going to apply all those things that you've learned. So, let's talk about your activity for tomorrow during the class. So we're going to be doing a group activity. And you can notice here a student who goes by the name Raymond. He's currently enrolled as a freshman in IGSL, just like you. So in groups of 2 or 3, I want you to write a story about him. There should be a comma right there. What his life was before enrolling in IGSL, and how his life is now as a student of IGSL. So can you guess what are the technical requirements for this? Yes, you guessed it right. So for 30 minutes, I want you to write 2 short paragraphs. Doesn't have to be long. You don't need to write a novel, or you don't need to write a short story. I mean, when we say short story in English, it's still a long story. But you just need to write 2 short paragraphs using, first, past tense. So 3 forms: was, were, simple past, past progressive. Why do we have to keep using past tense? Because, as what AJ Hogue said, we have to master these, and the only way we can master these is by using them, and using them as often as we can. And of course, we're going to be using present tense. The same. You have to use the three forms. The be verbs is, am, are. In this case, you can't use am because you're going to be talking about Raymond. I don't know how you're going to use are, but you can find your way. And you also have to use simple present and present progressive. I always say past progressive. Present progressive. Okay? After you're done, I want you to present your story to the class. So you're going to be doing it for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, then you're going to present your story. And based on your story, prepare 6 yes/no key questions to ask your classmates while you're presenting your story. So you might ask, how are we going to do that? So for example, for each sentence, you can fire a question to anyone randomly. And you can choose between yes/no question or a key question. So that's up to you. I want you to be able to do that because that's part of our our lesson, right? It's very important that you learn how to manipulate sentences, especially sentences in present tense and past tense as well. So it can be a combination of present tense or past tense. That is up to you. You don't need to stop at every sentence, but you just need to come up with 6 yes/no key questions for the whole story. Okay? So that's going to be for tomorrow. Yeah, so I'll see you tomorrow. We will start right away with our group activity tomorrow. Okay. Have a good night.